It is a tale as old as time, a tale of betrayal. The Padawan forsakes the master. The love of gold and glory has caused our beautiful baby boy Felix Jaeger to break all bonds of fellowship, break all oaths to his companion, and the most iconic duo since Milk and Cookies is now in ruins. Gotrek Garnison is coming for blood. You are my brother, Felix. It was said you would destroy the Empire, not join them. Bring balance to the Karazankor, not leave it in darkness. But the Jägermeister is already too far gone. He's making stacks on stacks on stacks in the Emperor's employ. And so on one side, we have Gotrek and the Dwarfs, and on the other, Felix Jaeger and the Dark Empire. Satisfy the grudge. I am playing as the Dawi. Janet on occasion will be playing as the Empire in a multiplayer matchup that traditionally favors the stunties. And Gotrek Garnison is a pocket legendary lord in a hero slot for Bretonnia, the Empire, or the Dwarfs. He wields one of the 3 legendary rune axes of Grimnir, and he's kind of a monster. Heroic Fortitude turns him into a phoenix flying into a rainbow. You gotta let him fly. If he drops low on HP, he's got a chance to gain about 1200 back instantly, which with his stat line can completely alter the course of a battle. Gotrek's Doom gives him a ridiculous 44 melee defense and 44% ward save buff on a 2-minute cooldown, and Heavy is the head that wears the mohawk. He's a duelist, a monster slayer, the best and worst slayer ever to pledge their life to Grimnir, huge effective HP pool, beastly stat line, about what you'd expect from such a legendary figure. But Gotrek isn't the only new thing with the Dwarfs on the Empire Undivided patch. Rune Lords receive some big changes as well. They're 50 less gold now, higher mass and resistance to knockback. His Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin no longer deals damage or nukes enemies, but it slows them by 76%, allowing Thunderers and Artillery to really capitalize on an opponent who's out of position. So you no longer have a Fate of Buna in your back pocket that also slows, but instead you have essentially a 200 range net that roots enemies in place like they're running in a vat of honey. It's pretty nasty. And Gyrocopters with Brimstone guns now have 15 bonus versus large, making them even more effective for sniping out large monsters or cavalry. Problem is, the Empire hasn't brought any. Everyone's on foot, which might be a lot more common against the Dawi now, because Cav and Chariots can be a bit risky when there's 6 or god forbid 9 200 range slows coming from rune magic. Now Felix Jaeger is an anti-infantry specialist, which doesn't make all that much sense considering that his sword Karagul is meant to kill dragons, but they did it to differentiate roles from Gotrek's anti-large, I'm sure. Karagul grants 44 melee attack and 32 bonus versus infantry with fire damage on a 2-minute cooldown, but where Felix really shines is the support he gives nearby lords and heroes. He can give them a single target buff that gives a 44% ward save and 44 melee attack with Helping Hand, while granting regeneration to all nearby characters when in melee, which can be incredibly strong, especially when it's buffing up Karl Franz or buffing up someone like Favor of the Fae and the Fae Enchantress. There's a lot of stacking there that can make for some really sick combinations. And the synergy between the two characters should be pretty obvious. Gotrek and Felix together can get their ward saves up to 88%, get Gotrek's stats close to 100, give him regen, and morph him into a complete force of nature. And Felix is no pushover himself. But for the deployments here, you see it's a pretty wide build for the Dawi, gyrocopters on both flanks. In the back here, some Sterling Deathjacks will be sniping out some artillery, or that's the plan anyway. I really like that move. That's a power move. Very sneaky, but with stalk and snipe, they can easily snipe out great cannons, and that can turn the artillery duel in your favor. So for the Empire, as they cross the beaten zone outside the Altdorf outskirts, 5 great swords, 4 swordsmen, Karl Franz, a life mage, and 2 cannons in the back. There's going to be a very important artillery duel as this battle begins. Whoever can snipe out the enemy artillery going to have a big leg up on the opposition. Now what Janet's doing right here I think is the right call. He's got 2 great cannons, going to have some swordsmen in the back to protect against a vanguard, ranger ambush, something like that. And the artillery duel will begin in earnest, but it's an infantry build through and through. There are no high-profile, large hitbox monsters or cavalry or expensive units really to get torn up by Thunderers or Dwarf Cannon Fire. There are no Demis, there are no Reichsguard. All that stuff would easily get shut down by the new Rune of Wrath and Ruin. And so he's avoiding that entirely, going very wide with an infantry build. 5 greatswords means it's going to be very hard to chunk through all that HP, all that anti-infantry, and armor piercing. This is why I love miners with blasting charges. Vanguard deploy them up front, explode the enemy front line like a potato in the microwave. They're going to get destroyed. Half of those swordsmen dead in those first couple of volleys. Retreat them, let them get that one more cast in with all those throws with their satchels. And those explosives do some serious work against state troops. Throw them into the back of great swords, it'll do some serious work there as well. Now Karl Franz and Felix Jaeger are going to work hand in hand as infantry duelists, and they're going to carve their way through anything. We're going to have to just avoid them for now. Karl Franz getting all that regen, also buffed up by the Life Mage, going to be scary, but Gotrek, the Doomseeker, into the middle of everything. Swordsman will be the first to feel his wrath, and that Axe of Grimnir is going to take the heads of so many. Anytime he swings those swords, he's got a unique set of animations, rolls around, and just carves a path of destruction. Wherever he walks, the Empire will feel his fury and get tossed around like ragdolls. The dude is strong. He's a small package, but he hits like a Mack truck. And we're going to watch his career with great interest because I think he's going to have at least a decent impact on the multiplayer meta overall, alongside with his now nemesis, Felix Jaeger. Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down on the great sword in the center. Thunder is going to focus fire on them, and they are moving like geriatric grandmas right now. 8 speed. I mean, they're basically netted in place. They can't move. The great swords cannot move, and they can't close the gap with their charge animation either, because it also slows down charge speed too. So it is pretty much a net. Gyrocopters in the back going straight for those great cannons, shooting them down. Pretty good plan because there's no range stuff back there to shoot them up. Sterling Deathjacks though, they're a problem. Have not seen them yet. They're going to begin opening fire into those dwarf cannons, try to take them out. And the miners with blasting charges are stuck in. Longbeards in the center, trying to hold against all these great swords. Karl Franz and Felix Jaeger, though, they are the biggest threat. Anti-infantry specialist, more than 400 weapon strength when he's got that anti-infantry buff up. Oh my god, Karagul is just going to mess up these poor miners. They have absolutely no hope whatsoever. Karl Franz and Felix Jaeger gooning them up. Decapitations everywhere. And though it might be a Dragon Slayer, it is more than enough to slice the heads off some Dawi shoulders. And anything that gets in their way is going to be in for a very, very rough time. And remember, Karl Franz this entire time going to be getting that helping hand buff to massively increase his ward save and his melee attack. And also give him regen. Karl Franz with regen is a problem. Thunder is folding back to fire into the left flank now. Gotrek into great swords. And he is going to completely change the complexion of that. Oh my god. They just went flying. Great swords. Just parting the Red Sea in front of this furious Slayer. He laying about with that axe. Ah, it's glorious to behold. It is just a glorious thing to behold. I don't know if it's one of those things where they made his strength higher than some other lords, but it seems like every time he attacks, enemies go flying way further than you see from like any other character. So I'm loving that. Dude's hitting great swords out of the park like Barry Bonds during the Balco years, man. Designer steroids for my boy, but Slayer's on the hunt. They sniffed out the Deathjacks, who are now pooping their pants and running for their wretched little lives. Thunderers folding back will probably want to beat the retreat horn. Great cannons firing into them. They want to back away because it seems like the great swords are going to be able to break through this Longbeard and Dwarf Warrior front line. Obviously with all that AP and anti-infantry, they were always going to be able to, but the Slayers, they have caught up to their nemesis. And those Deathjacks really didn't get much fire going the way of those cannons, actually. Seems like they might have done a little bit of damage, but noticed it relatively early. That snipe was going straight into those dwarf cannons, and now they're just running. And they're not going to be able to make much of an impact when they're getting hunted by angry Slayers. But Karl Franz and Felix Jaeger continue to push through. Dwarf Slayers now going to slow them down, and some brutal friendly fire coming in, decapitating a few of their own number. That's probably going in the Book of Grudges, I would imagine. Dragonback Slayers surrounding and tar-pitting as Felix Jaeger and Karl Franz continue to be on the hunt. On this side, Gotrek has completely changed how those great swords were able to fight. Him and a Dwarf Warrior unit crushed a great sword unit. Crushed them. That unit's already running for the hills, and he's going to go back in and kill even more great swords. Ward save about to pop too, and he's well over 50 kills already in this battle, laying about and completely generating so much value against elite infantry. I'm loving what he's able to do. on my right flank. He's the only reason that side is still holding. The only reason it has not buckled so far. The Dawi are on borrowed time. There's only so many Dragonback Slayers you can throw into the mix. Unbreakable only lasts while you have bodies to throw into the meat grinder. Beautiful shots coming in from the gyrocopters, and we're going to be able to get some nice value out of them firing into great swords. Not quite as nice as firing into Cav. A nasty slice from Felix Jaeger and Karagul taking out a Dragonback Slayer. One more slice before he falls to the earth, but I don't think he'll be swinging anymore after that. He doesn't have a head. Great swords pushing through. Dragonback Slayers about to be finished off for good. And more shots coming in from those gyrocopters. But this is starting to swing in the Empire's favor for sure. You can see the entire front line is in disarray. There's breaking everywhere. Low HP everywhere. Gyrocopters have managed to take out both of the Empire Great Cannons. So at least that threat is eliminated. And we're going to let Gotrek escape from those great swords by Rune of Wrath and ruining those elite infantry killers on the Empire left flank, and hopefully that will give those Thunderers a bit more time to fire into them as well. Look at that, man. Tar pitted like crazy. They can't move, and more armor-piercing volleys going their way. But Karl Franz and Felix Jaeger are free now through the Dragonback Slayers. None of them are left, folding back, continuously trying to retreat and buy time for those Thunderers and Gotrek to do what he wants. And here we go, the duel for the ages. It's over, Felix Jaeger. I have the high ground. Gotrek with the Axe of Grimnir, RKO from behind, and we've got a duel for the ages. Two of the most iconic characters in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Once friends, now enemies. A rivalry to echo throughout eternity. And here we go. This is what you came for. Who's gonna win in a duel between them? I don't know. It looks like Gotrek should win it. On paper, he should win it. Felix is more of a support character, but Karagul, with his innate bonus versus infantry, he gets 50 bonus versus infantry combined, which is absolutely absurd. But Gotrek surrounded, gyrocopters surrounded, trying to support with those spinning blades, but great swords have completely inundated Gotrek here. Oh, beautiful cannon shot though, going right through the entire flank of those great swords, leaving just puddles of blood in its wake. But the gyros have routed. Franz is there. Gotrek is in huge trouble. He has popped his ward save to keep him in that fight. Slayers coming in from behind that might be able to turn it, but Franz and Felix Jaeger combined might be too much for even the greatest and worst Slayer ever. More ranged support coming in though, and it looks like Felix is one hit from death. So is Gotrek, and it looks like, hello there, Gotrek with the spinning blade, gonna take out his long-lost friend, and Felix Jaeger is gone for good. He's out of it, but Gotrek dropping to 18 HP, and then, like a phoenix reborn from the ashes, all the way back up to 1200. Gotrek just dropped to 18 HP. He was a fart or a stiff wind from dying there, and he escapes because he gets that Phoenix Rebirth ability, gets back up to 1200, and starts running away because we have more important things to deal with than fighting Karl Franz in a 1v1 duel supported by swordsmen. Now the gyrocopters have come back, and they've not used their bombs yet. They just did. And those swordsmen are very blobbed up around those slayers, and we're going to start dropping some very juicy bombing runs on top of these swordsmen and get some very nice kills. The gyrocopters have paid for themselves many times over at this point, taking out great cannons, taking out great swords, and dropping bombs on swordsmen from on high. Slayers, they're going to do what they can. Unbreakable, but man, this has been a brutal battle. The Empire and the Dwarfs, once friends, now foes, much like Gotrek and Felix themselves, and they've broken through the Slayer line, and now it's pretty much Thunderers is all that remains except the Rune Lord and a sliver of HP on Gotrek Gurnison. But they're gooning up on that Jade Wizard, who just got tossed up, alley-ooped, back to Papa. Thunderers firing into him as he went flying, and we're going to chase him off the map with some gyrocopters as well. So they're going to come back and hopefully reinforce in this infantry grind. But what was looking very, very, very bad for the Dwarfs, that balance bar was 2/3 in the Empire's favor. It swung back, and now it's not quite even, but almost. And the gyrocopters have a nice target to go after. These great swords won't be able to beat them, actually, because they're so low on HP and leadership, and it looks like they just broke. Karl Franz with Galmoraz going straight for Gotrek and the Rune Lord, but now he's alone. Now he does not have the regen from the Jade Wizard, nor from Felix Jaeger himself. Doesn't have that helping hand buff, doesn't have that ward save, and with Thunderous firing in, those swordsmen look like they're about to break too. Balance Bar beginning to shift, Karl Franz getting gooned up on, and the Dwarfs might be able to steal victory from the jaws of defeat. Yeah, 2/3 in the Dwarfs' favor. Karl Franz is wavering. That is going to be the end of the game. Gotrek takes it with a life-saving, Phoenix-like rise from the ashes. That was super hype and made for a crazy ending and a really close battle. First off, I want to say great game to Janet on occasion. That was incredibly fun and incredibly close. And that duel there was amazing. Gotrek, surrounded by enemies, manages to kill Felix Jaeger and escape, barely, with slivers of HP. And both he and Franz got 92 kills. Both made a big impact on that game. Where Franz got a lot of his kills on miners and dwarf warriors, Gotrek was holding down an entire flank almost by himself, supporting miners and dwarf warriors against great swords and killing a ton of high-value elite infantry, which really helped turn that game. That life-saving burst of HP completely shifted the complexion there. He was one hit from death, he was a stiff wind from death, and came back to duel Karl Franz and put him in the trash can there at the end of the match. Felix Jaeger, though, was no slouch that game, almost 60 kills, and his support for Karl Franz was a big reason why they were able to carve through those middle ranks so easily. Really, really impressive from Felix Jaeger. Honestly, I think both him and Gotrek are going to make an impact on the multiplayer meta. Still remains to be seen how much of an impact, but I think there are going to be some dirty combinations. And in fact, Felix Jaeger, as you'll see in maybe some testing later, can dumpster Morgur, Khalida, and some other characters like crazy. Super fun.